You can't even afford the appetizers here, Marcus sneered across the white tablecloth, his designer watch catching the candlelight as he gestured dismissively at the leather-bound menu. Mom's 60th birthday dinner at Harrington's, one of Portland's most exclusive restaurants, had taken a turn I hadn't anticipated. Everyone at our table seemed to be holding their breath, waiting to see how I'd respond to his cruelty. What none of them realized was that I had already paid for the entire evening, down to the last penny, and the manager was about to walk over and prove exactly why my brother's arrogance was about to crumble. The tension around our table had been building all week. Marcus, fresh off a promotion at some tech startup, had been unbearable, bragging about his six-figure salary and making pointed comments about how the rest of us hadn't really made it in life. Dad had tried to change the subject multiple times, but Marcus kept circling back, finding new ways to remind everyone that he was the successful one, the one who'd actually accomplished something. When Mom had tentatively mentioned wanting to celebrate at Harrington's, a restaurant she'd always dreamed of visiting, the table had gone quiet. "It's fine, honey," Mom had said that afternoon, her voice wavering slightly. "We can do Olive Garden instead. It's just as nice." But I'd already made the call to the restaurant. I'd spoken with the owner personally, explained the situation and arranged everything. I'd asked that they keep it quiet, that they not mention anything to my family. I wanted Marcus to learn this lesson on his own terms in front of everyone without any elaborate setup. Sometimes the most powerful moments come from simple truth meeting pride. My brother had no idea what I did for work. That wasn't out of shame or humility, it was deliberate. 5 years ago, I'd made some investment decisions that had paid off beyond my wildest expectations. A tech startup I'd believed in, a real estate portfolio I'd built quietly, and a consulting side business that had grown into something substantial. I was worth more than Marcus would ever know, and I'd kept it that way intentionally. There's a certain freedom in the world not knowing your worth. You don't become a target. You don't get hit up for loans. You don't have relatives suddenly becoming very interested in your well-being. The restaurant itself was stunning. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Willamette River, soft jazz playing from hidden speakers, tables spaced far enough apart that conversations felt private. It was exactly the kind of place Mom deserved to celebrate her milestone birthday. When we'd arrived, the maitre d' had treated me with a difference that made Marcus visibly irritated. I'd watched his jaw clench as the staff pulled out chairs, offered champagne and explained the evening's special preparations. "Must be nice to be treated like royalty somewhere," he'd mutter as we sat down, not quite quiet enough for me to pretend I hadn't heard. Across the table, Aunt Linda, who'd never been Marcus' biggest fan, rolled her eyes. Dad returned to studying the wine list with intense concentration. My younger sister, Ashley, caught my eye briefly, a knowing glint of amusement in her expression. She was the only one who knew about my financial situation. She'd figured it out 6 months ago when I casually mentioned taking a month-long vacation to New Zealand, and she was sharp enough to do the math. The moment crystallized about 40 minutes into dinner, right after our entree had arrived. Marcus had taken a call, which was tacky enough, and when he returned he was practically vibrating with the need to brag about his ridiculous bonus and how he'd finally be ascending to the lifestyle he deserved. He'd been drinking steadily, his confidence inflating with every glass of wine, his filter completely gone. "You know what's funny?" he said, cutting into his crab cake with theatrical flair. "Growing up, we were all supposed to believe we had equal opportunities. But the reality is most people just don't have what it takes to actually make it. They're content to coast, work at some mid-level position, eat at restaurants where the plates are plastic and the wine comes from a box." He looked directly at me. "No offense, but you especially seem fine with that existence. You probably think Applebee's is fancy." The table went silent. Mom put down her fork. Aunt Linda opened her mouth to say something cutting. I just smiled, genuinely smiled, and said nothing. That's when Marcus made his real mistake. He turned to Mom, his voice dripping with false sympathy. "Mom, I don't want to be harsh, but I'm genuinely surprised you could afford a place like this at all. Did you take out a loan or something? Because if you're struggling with finances, I could probably help. I mean, not with a ton of money, but I could probably cover like next month's rent or something." The implication was clear. He thought Mom couldn't afford this. He thought we were all beneath this restaurant's standards. He thought he was somehow elevating our collective status by gracing us with his presence. Dad's face had gone red. Aunt Linda had actually gasped. Ashley kicked me under the table, warning that I was about to lose my patience. Mom had started to tear up. That's when the manager approached. The restaurant's manager, Philippe, was a man in his late 50s, with silver threading through his dark hair and a manner so practiced it could have been refined in a palace. He'd been watching our table intermittently all evening, not intrusively but in that quiet, precise way experienced hospitality professionals do, monitoring for any needs or issues. I had texted him 10 minutes ago with just one word. Now. After Marcus' comment about loans and rent, Philippe approached with 2 other staff members, each holding bottles of the restaurant's finest champagne. His expression was carefully neutral, the perfect mask of professionalism, but I could see the faint glimmer of amusement in his eyes. "Excuse me, sir," he said to Marcus, his voice smooth as butter. "May I have a word with you?" Marcus' face went pale. Not white but drained, as if all the blood had suddenly left his body, leaving his skin the color of old newspaper. His hand, midair with his fork, froze. His mouth opened slightly, a classic expression of someone about to speak before engaging their brain. Marcus began. "The owner would like to express his appreciation for your patronage this evening," Philippe continued, maintaining that perfect professional tone that somehow conveyed no warmth whatsoever. "In fact, when I informed him of your presence, he specifically requested that I ensure you were aware of a rather important detail about our establishment." I watched my brother's eyes dart around the table, landing on Dad's stern expression, Aunt Linda's undisguised glee, Mom's confused face, Ashley's barely concealed smirk, and finally settling on me. Something shifted in his features, a dawning realization that maybe, just maybe, he had miscalculated something significant. "This restaurant," Philippe said, placing the champagne on our table with ceremonial precision, "operates on a philosophy. Our guests are never to be made uncomfortable by concerns about affordability. The moment a guest walks through our doors, such worldly worries cease to exist. We pride ourselves on creating an experience where everyone is treated as valued, deserving, and worthy of our finest service and offerings." He paused, letting it sink in. The owner had been clear about this principle when he purchased the establishment 20 years ago. Marcus' silence was thunderous. "Furthermore," Philippe continued, and I could almost see him enjoying the moment despite his professional composure, "the owner wanted me to inform you that your entire evening, including the exceptional champagne we're now serving, the private chef's preparations, and any additional courses you may desire, has been secured by a member of your party. This guest has ensured that tonight's celebration is entirely their gift to your family." He let that statement hang in the air. Marcus' face drained of every remaining trace of color. He looked at me with an expression cycling through confusion, realization, shame, and anger. Dad went completely still. Mom's hand moved to her mouth. Ashley shook with barely suppressed laughter. Aunt Linda looked like she was watching the most entertaining television program she'd ever seen. "I don't," Marcus started, his voice smaller than I'd ever heard it. "Shall I have Chef Dimitri prepare his special 7-course tasting menu for the remainder of your evening?" Philippe asked, already knowing the answer but performing his duty with absolute professionalism. "Or would you prefer to continue with your current selections?" Before Marcus could respond, Philippe executed a subtle gesture. 3 additional servers appeared to refresh water glasses, clear plates, and generally make the entire dining room aware that something significant had just occurred at table 7. As Philippe glided away, a master of his craft, leaving his message to ferment, the realization fully settled over the table like a winter frost. Marcus hadn't just been proved wrong, he'd been proved wrong in public at the peak of his pride, in front of everyone he'd been trying to impress. The rest of dinner proceeded in a strange, suspended quality. Marcus barely spoke, mechanically eating the food before him. Dad caught my eye at one point and simply nodded, a gesture heavy with complicated family history and eventual forgiveness, but mostly containing one simple truth: I had done the right thing. Mom kept reaching over to squeeze my hand, tears occasionally leaking from the corners of her eyes. But these were different tears than those Marcus' cruelty had provoked. These were the tears of someone who had been seen, valued, and protected by someone she loved. She didn't need an explanation. The gesture itself had spoken volumes about what I thought of her and what I would not tolerate being directed toward her. After dinner in the parking lot, Marcus finally approached me. He looked diminished somehow, like his suit had suddenly become too large for his frame. His eyes were red, Whether from anger or shame I couldn't tell. "How long?" he asked quietly. "Long enough," I replied. "Why didn't you just tell me?" I considered the question carefully. Because you needed to learn that the world doesn't confirm your assumptions about yourself. That people can be living full, successful, meaningful lives while quietly existing outside your awareness. Arrogance is a particular kind of blindness, and you had to humiliate me to teach me that. No, I said it and meant it. I had to protect Mom from your cruelty. Your humiliation was just a consequence of your own choices. He stood there for a long moment, genuinely processing this, not as a counterargument to parse or a statement to defend, but as an actual truth about himself and his behavior. "I'm sorry," he finally said, and something in his voice suggested he actually meant it. To Mom, to everyone, especially to me. I nodded. I wasn't ready to absolve him entirely. That would come later, over months of genuine reflection. But I acknowledged his apology. Family is complicated. Pride is a particular burden. And sometimes the most profound lessons come not from being told how wrong you are, but from experiencing the consequences of that wrongness in a way that bypasses all your defenses. As we drove home that evening, Mom sat in the passenger seat beside me, still occasionally squeezing my hand. Ashley was in the back, still occasionally laughing to herself. And behind us, in his own car, Marcus was driving somewhere quieter to sit with the evening's revelations. The restaurant had taught him a lesson that no lecture, argument, or family conversation could have delivered. Sometimes we need the world to show us what we refuse to see about ourselves. Sometimes we need to be reminded that our narrow understanding of success and worth is just that, narrow. And sometimes, the greatest gift we can give our loved ones is the willingness to stand up for their dignity when they cannot do it themselves. Mom's 60th birthday dinner had become something neither of us would ever forget. But not in the way Marcus had anticipated when he arrived at that table, supremely confident in his superiority and utterly blind to the truth that had been sitting across from him all along.